Okay, so how do you go from recruiting athletes to recruiting the general student body? It's really the same practices, right? It's about relationships. Some of the teams are replacing and adding, 10 or 12 new athletes each season, not just a 3 or 4, but whether it's 3 or 10, clearly you have to scale up quite a bit in admission. But when you're working at the same university, you're still selling the same things, right? What I worry about with students, and some of these jobs are exciting and they do pay well and they have bonuses and things coming directly out of high school as an 18-year-old. But what I worry about is what if when you wake up and you're 30 or 40 or 50 and you don't like doing that job anymore and you're kind of stuck because that's what you were trained to do, where a degree just opens up many, many possibilities. And that's how people are able to navigate and have the 11 different jobs in 3 or 4 unrelated fields, because the degree didn't just train you on one thing. You're not a one-trick pony.
Welcome back to another episode here on the Heart and Hustle podcast alongside Mr. Todd. Todd, man, let's get right into it, man. You start as an athlete, then an assistant coach, and then somehow you kind of lead up in enrollment management. And I tell you, a lot of people don't know about probably enrollment management. How did recruiting student athletes actually translate to what you're doing today?
Sure. And by the way, I just want to put in a plug. Our hockey team just won the national championship and Saturday night. We beat Michigan last Thursday in the semifinals and Wisconsin in the finals. So behind me, you're seeing we've won the championship 3 of the last 5 years. A lot total. But if we were to do this podcast in a few weeks, I will have a third banner directly behind me to go with the other 2. So how do you go from recruiting athletes to recruiting the general student body? It's really the same practices, right? It's about relationships. Mm-hmm. And certainly when you move from athletic recruiting, when you're maybe trying to add 3 or 4 new athletes each fall, although that was back when I was coaching, now with rosters turning over with the transfer portal and, the name, image, and likeness and revenue sharing, some of the teams are replacing and adding 10 or 12 new athletes each season, not just a 3 or 4, but whether it's 3 or 10, clearly you have to scale up quite a bit in admission. But when you're working at the same university, you're still selling the same things, right? The great academics, our great faculty, the personal attention we provide at a private university, all the amazing outcomes, the fact that you get to live in Denver and in Colorado. So all I had to do was scale up my game. Right? Instead of trying to recruit a handful, where I will say on the athletic side, it could be not just personalized, but really customized, because you really did get to know them. When we're recruiting, literally, we had 22,000 applications this year. So you can't always get to know these students on a personal and customizable way, but you can certainly take a lot of the same personal things we did for athletic recruits and apply them, in larger scales.
Pretty much having the framework, tweaking it to make sense in this case. I ask you, man, you mentioned hockey, but were you playing hockey? Like, what was the sport? You were an athlete, but what was the sport you were playing?
No, back in the day, so I came up, I was a basketball player through high school. And then actually in college, I maybe could have played at a smaller level, but I decided to go to a Division I school. And I volunteered right away. I became a student manager and eventually a student assistant, then a graduate assistant. And then kind of one thing just kept leading to another. And I ended up coaching at 3 schools at Bowling Green in Ohio, which is where my alma mater, both undergrad and grad. And then I was at the University of Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns. And then I was the assistant basketball coach here at University of Denver when I first started. And then after about 4 years, I ended up switching to undergrad admission.
And how many years have you been in Denver now?
This is my 29th year at the University of Denver.
Lord, almost 3 decades, Todd?
3 decades.
Did you like, I can imagine high school to college, you probably thought you were going to be doing something different, I can imagine. What was that thing that Todd thought he was going to be doing?
It's interesting. Yeah, definitely. I think when you're in high school and college, you don't even know that a job in admission or, we call it enrollment management now, that was a job that even existed. I think you just assumed, you applied and somehow just magically worked out that
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
someone who actually like read your application or recruited you. And it's changed, a great deal. Obviously, now it is enrollment management and marketing and recruiting, and where I think back, I'll age myself, but when I was in high school and college, you literally applied to two or three schools, and it was, just kind of more of a process.
Yeah.
Just you were kind of checking some boxes, and it just would magically work out. And today, it's it is a lot more complex and nuanced.
Do you feel, just talking about that, do you feel that our students are prepared for that? I always feel like sometimes why some may not get to the next level is because they feel it's difficult, right? They feel like they don't have the resources. But I think one, that while it may feel difficult, there's resources out there to kind of navigate that as well. But there's also resources that kind of help you, whether it's paying for college, getting through college, where that looks like. Do you feel while we've changed the model, that we've also kind of increased access on how to get from A to Z?
Yeah, access has improved dramatically, I would say, in the last decade or two. Probably what's changed, think, again, I'll age myself. Back in the day, there wasn't internet and you really just relied on your high school counselor. But think about it. Many, many high schools don't have a counselor dedicated to college counseling, right? Like back in the 80s and 90s, they were maybe there more to help you schedule your classes or any with your personal problems, but they really weren't there to help you with college counseling. That's changed, dramatically. Most schools do have counselors who have training now and information about helping students like at colleges. But, unfortunately, we still have a lot of high schools that don't have that luxury. They don't have the resources to have dedicated college people. But what has changed? Hey, we've got the internet. We have social media that students can follow colleges on social media. They can learn so many things on the web, not just the websites of the university, but there's many different platforms where students can learn about schools and all their opportunities.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think sometimes it's always one of those like, oh, I didn't know, but it's like, how do we get them there for sure? So, yeah, I'm the president of my old high school, and I didn't even know it existed, but it's a college and resource, yes, teacher, and that's all she does, man. She just gets kids from the beginning of school. She's seeing them 3 times a year, making sure they got everything they need, especially as they're graduating, making sure they're filling out their applications, making sure they're filling out those scholarships. But even then, we still got kids that kind of wait last minute and all these different things. What have you realized that works when you're talking to these students to kind of get them motivated to fill out these applications faster? Because I was talking to her and I was like, hey, I see some schools that some people in enrollment management that I speak to, and they always say that they go speak to kids and they'll help them with FAFSA and all these different things. Do we have that happening at the school? She said, Efrain, you can bring all this to the school, but kids are still going to procrastinate and wait last minute. What do you tell those kids, man?
Hey, I still try to get my own children, right, who are now in college, just to text me back, right? So sometimes it is. I mean, it's a lot of work and a lot of nudges, and you have to keep catching these students where they are at their given time. That it might take 15 emails, right? And finally, that 15th one, they might respond, or pushing a digital ad or a social media post that eventually through different platforms, multiple channels and persistence by the colleges, eventually, or the counselors at their schools, eventually you do get them through the hoops, right? These students are very, very busy. They're all doing really well in school for the most part. They work hard. They're busy just with their classroom demands, but then they're in clubs and athletics and theater and organizations. And they're also not just looking at one or two local schools. Certainly a number of students are, but students are also looking at 10, 15, 20 schools, and they're all over the country. And you're getting bombarded with emails from all of those schools, plus the ones you didn't apply to. So there's a lot of noise that you do have to kind of navigate through.
Yeah.
So that's why I think those little additional nudges on the personal level from a counselor running into someone in the hallway saying, hey, Johnny, deadline's tomorrow. Did you submit it yet? Right? And a lot of times they haven't. But if you didn't have that little bump in the hallway, maybe they would have missed the deadline.
Yeah, no, for sure. I always say that one moment, right? That one time, that one person can change it all. And it's being right there, as you mentioned, where they're at, meeting them where they're at. For you to be there, man, almost 3 decades now, I can imagine you just get kind of refueled every time you walk through the university? Is that what keeps you there, man? Is the energy of the school? You guys become champions again. That could be the excitement around the school going on right now.
We are the campus of champions, right? And you should have seen the campus and the surrounding area Saturday. Literally thousands of people just all wearing the DU, swag and colors.
That's cool.
It was super fun, but that's one of the reasons. There's nothing better than living and working on a college campus. That you're always around, whether it's the students, the faculty, or staff. You're just surrounded by smart, ambitious, motivated people who I think also have just a positive lens on kind of the future of the world. And that's invigorating to be around.
I love that. And with your team that visits, I think you mentioned about 1,000+ schools and colleges, fairs every year. What does that look like? Like, what exactly looks like when you guys set a foot on campus? Do you feel like that there's a lot of changes there? Do you feel like that's what's needed to get the information and resources out?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. Yeah, between high school visits and college fairs, our team will visit at least 1,000 schools or programs. And a lot of times that's just in the fall, that we end up doing more this time of year too, working with the 10th and 11th graders now to get them to apply, either next year or another year from now. But you do it for a couple of reasons. In the beginning, yes, it's sharing information, right? You're bringing all your propaganda and your marketing materials and how great your university is. And certainly those are all true. But the other thing is it's really about the relationships that the students change because they graduate. So you have shorter term relationships with those students. You might get the opportunity to see them in 11th and then again in 12th grade if you go back to their fair or to their school to visit. But a lot of times the school counselors stay the same. So you're wanting them to remember what are the great strengths about University of Denver and the things we want them to know about our curriculum and about our faculty and about the way we mentor students and the outcomes, how our students graduate and then become great citizens and alumni. That the counselors are the ones that really help us organically, because students come and go, but the counselors are the constant at those schools.
How does it feel, man? I can imagine you've been a part of somebody's journey, maybe starting at 17 years old, see them kind of go through, graduate, probably come back and share these conversations. What does that make you feel? How does that make you feel?
It's a really proud moment. I mean, I think it just reminds you how noble college access work is and college admission. That absolutely, when you've been here 3 decades, I'm now starting to recruit students of students, if that makes sense. That people you first recruited are now 40 years old and they have their own families and careers. And that's just so gratifying to see that, to see how they've evolved. And, they're maybe on their second or third job now and they've been promoted and they're doing well. And now they have a student. They maybe remember the friendship they had with me, and they remember the great memories and results they had at University of Denver, and they bring their students back to look at campus, and that's super fun.
Yeah, and I can imagine a lot of those probably first gen to then be able to kind of give that opportunity to their kids and you being a part of that journey. That's what you it for, man. I can imagine that we talk about passion and purpose. This is it. It's not about you per se, right? It's about the next generation. Is how do we get them so involved? And I think that could be a challenge going on right now. I think there's so many challenges, but I think from the challenges of people may not think that school is important, right, or valuable. I think the best one that I heard so far was like, if you ever think about buying a car that costs $28,000, it devalues, right, once you drive it off the lot. But getting that piece of paper, that education, that black and white, no one can ever take that away from you. And you just mentioned 3 or 4 jobs to somebody, and that could be they're getting more and more every single time. So the ROI on it is actually very high compared to you investing into a car. And when someone paints that picture, I don't know that people paint that picture that way. Like what are you saying to students, right, on making great investments versus a bad investment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to, and it's like a retirement planning. You have to have the long-term view. That, what I worry sometimes you see in the media, just students are told, you don't need to go to college. Look at the job you can get right out of high school and the great money you can make. And by the way, in some cases, that is absolutely true. That maybe out of high school, your job is really similar. Although I think all the research will show even the first job out of college does pay more than the high school diploma job. But where it really gains value, if you only want to look at careers and salaries, is over the course of your career. What I worry about with students And some of these jobs are exciting and they do pay well and they have bonuses and things coming directly out of high school as an 18-year-old. But what I worry about is what if when you wake up and you're 30 or 40 or 50 and you don't like doing that job anymore and you're kind of stuck because that's what you were trained to do, where a degree just opens up many, many possibilities. And that's how people are able to navigate and have the 11 different jobs in 3 or 4 unrelated fields, because the degree didn't just train you on one thing. You're not a one-trick pony. Because, we don't just educate you only in your major, right? That oftentimes you have a second major, or 2 or 3 minors, but it's also the mentoring you get and the personal growth you have over those 4 years that I think are just as valuable as checking the box on the curriculum. And those are the long-term gains. And I worry about, hey, great, you made really good money out of high school for 5 years, but now you're kind of stuck. And you're not as easily able to navigate into kind of doing new and different things.
You know what, you say that actually makes a lot of sense. I would say I left high school. I was one of those fortunate ones that I left high school to become a GM at 19 years old, and I was making great money. But yeah, once I walked away after year 8, I didn't have a degree to fall back on, right? So it's almost like, oh, okay, you did this. Where do we? I almost had to start back at the bottom, right? Which I never mind. Like I sometimes purposely did that. But yeah, for sure, if I had that degree, it would have been an easier transition. I don't think we see it that way as well. There's so many different aspects of that. And I think there's also, when we think about our students thinking that some majors may not matter. The biggest one that I've heard so far was in engineering, right, into that space. Are you guys also seeing some like decline in certain programs just because they think AI is the next wave, so we don't need to go there? But it's probably a little opposite as well, right? Can you kind of talk about that?
Well, hopefully one of the main things you learn while you're on our campus is how to become a lifetime learner, that you always have to stay relevant, right, and innovative. Like you've even mentioned me being here 29 years, the new and different skills and competencies I've had to gain to be successful in my job, right? I'm not just using what I learned in college, especially in the STEM fields, that information probably doubles every 2 or 3 years. I would say you still need first of all, learn to learn. But secondly, some of the foundational things will always be the same, or at least give you that great baseline to learn the new things, to keep complementing and adding on to your skill set. Computer science is a program right now nationally, not just at University of Denver. I think a lot of us at universities have seen a decline in the number of students applying and considering computer science. And I think that's a mistake. Because yes, AI and all the technology we have, they maybe are replacing certain aspects of your job, but not all of the jobs. Yeah. And I would still say, I would think the ability to really have checks and balances with AI, you still want a human that knows how to code. Because how do you even check accuracy on AI or check accuracy on any number of things if you yourself haven't trained your brain to do it? And yes, if you can, it's not replacing jobs. Technology is hopefully going to replace aspects of your job, so then the human can do higher level things and, free up time to be more strategic, more visionary. But I would still want that baseline training. I wouldn't just write off computer science and not do it. That's something you're still interested in. Go for it. And I think your career might actually be more exciting because you won't be doing some of those, menial things.
Okay, that is good. I do agree with everything you just said. But then I'm also having a problem, right? Because then I told you I'm part of the high school. Every time I go, I cannot use a ChatGPT or a Claude because it's banned in the high schools. So it's like, if we want our kids to go and say that it's okay and that there's all these opportunities, like we have to be teaching our kids that, right? And while college is doing that, at the high school level, they're kind of creating that fear, right? You can't use this, and instead of you allowing them to use it correctly. I think at some point we see job descriptions that are looking for a prompt engineer, because you still have to understand how to have this AI work. It doesn't just work. Someone has to make it work.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right. But do you think that we're also not to be knocking on any high schools, but do you think that that's the level we really should start kind of saying, hey, these are the guardrails, this is how we should be using it, so that they are a little bit more open to even that degree?
I think it's across the board. You can look at high schools and colleges and universities, and there are some that, yes, are really keeping it down under wraps, and there's others that are embracing it, embedding it, and integrating it in every way they can. University of Denver is certainly one of those schools. We see the importance of it. We want to integrate it not just in our STEM programs, integrate it across our curriculum. We don't care if you're an arts and humanities, social sciences major, or a computer science major. These are skills you must have, and you need to use them to be proficient. You need to use them and benefit from them. Students are using the tools whether you like it or not. So
Agree.
you might as well open it up and embrace it in your classrooms. And certainly you want to put parameters around it, right? Maybe each class or each professor might have different guidelines or practices where they all agree, hey, we'll use it for these things, but these things over here, maybe let's all agree we're not going to use it. But to shut it off completely, I think is a mistake. And I think the schools, I can certainly point to a number of school districts at the secondary level where they are embracing it. So colleges better be ready. Colleges better not shut it off, because these high school students are already coming with an expectation that is part of their life and part of their academic experience.
If the Heart and Hustle podcast has ever sparked any idea or made you think differently, do us a favor. Make sure to guys share this, post it on LinkedIn, or even text that nonprofit friend that you just have. Whatever works, this is what keeps the conversation going and allows us to just grow this community together. Seriously, we appreciate you. What ways are you using it, Todd? I know you mentioned that you're. It seems like, I don't want to say you mentioned it, but it seems like you're a fan of the AI space. Are you using AI in any certain ways that people probably didn't realize they can use AI?
We're kind of on the edge of doing it. AI sounds wonderful, but it doesn't always work exactly how it is marketed right out of the box. That I think eventually a lot of college admission offices will be able to use it to calculate GPAs on transcripts. So, and let me remind all your listeners that I think most college admission offices will still always have humans reading applications and making the admission decisions. But AI could help them the file would already be prepared and ready before they read it. So a human doesn't have to calculate the GPA. Right? A human doesn't have to do the credit evaluations, because so many students are also taking college classes that, hey, these 4 classes will come in for these credits at DU. AI will eventually be able to do that. We're taking this year to train a couple different AI platforms to do credit evaluations, to do GPA calculations. We also have another platform to help us personalize and scale even more. I mentioned we had 22,000 applications. I don't have enough humans, and there aren't enough hours in the day to always personally communicate with them. But AI can learn things about the students and learn things about DU, and maybe it's a text message or an email or a phone call, incoming or outgoing, that yes, it's a bot, but it's a bot that's been trained by DU humans. So it knows DU as well or better than probably our staff. My staff can't memorize our entire website. Right? Our staff can't memorize the entire course catalog. Right? AI, in some ways, is a better counselor and advisor than a human, with some of those quick facts that you just need to know. So I think there's a lot of advantage. I would tell you, though, all those areas, it's not perfected yet. We're still testing. AI doesn't always pull the right stuff from the website, and guess what? Your website isn't always up to date either.
That is true.
From 1995, and that the information on there is not what you want to be sharing with students.
It's funny that you say that, man, because there's been so many times I'm a big AI user, and where I'm using a Claude or a ChatGPT or something, and it would say, hey, by the way, this is wrong. And you're like, holy crap, like 3 eyes have done cross past this and no one's caught this. The things that AI does pick up. Sometimes, yesterday I was fighting with it. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for this online, but I cannot find this. And the response to me was like, okay, I was making it up. You're driving me crazy making things up. I'm going in circles. So there is understanding that it is not going to be perfect.
Yep.
It still needs so much, input. It's data, right? That's why I say when we talk about that engineering and the computer science data, you can still be a part of it because it's still being built and will continue to be built. Yep. And when we think about where technology's at, man, we started off in the I don't have it now. It's somewhere in my office, but a floppy disk. I think it's so funny that I even still have this floppy disk. But I just think about the evolution of it all, right? When we then go into something like internet and people were scared and it was like, what is this? And then we go to social media, which was another scary part of our lives. What is this? Right? But it's all kind of been integrated. And I think AI is that same thing, will be integrated. It is now, and it will continue to be integrated. So what are we doing to kind of stay up and relevant? It doesn't leave us behind. It is doing, I think, using AI and allow it to loop in with humans, allowing those humans to do sometimes what they went to school for and what they really love, that passion, and just let AI do the things that are repetitive, right? Those frequently asked questions that are being asked all the time. Just imagine the time consumed, the energy for someone to sit here and answer the same questions over and over. It makes it boring, right? The only reason Todd has been able to do this 29 years is because it's been exciting, it's been new, been challenging.
Yep.
And that's what kind of keeps you going, man. But outside of school, because it seems like you love what you do, what is keeping Todd grounded, man? What is Todd doing outside the higher ed world?
Well, first of all, there's also another reason why I've said 29 years. Living in Denver and living in Colorado are pretty special.
Okay.
And, if you embrace the outdoors, I love to bike, golf, ski, just go out for hikes and walks. Like, there's a lot in Colorado and especially in our very stressful jobs, boy, even an hour away, walking out in our great sunshine, and it's not just marketing. We truly do have over 300 days of sunshine. I'm sure there's some data geek or AI would tell you, no, it's actually like 285 or whatever. It certainly feels like when you live here, that the sun is out literally every day, and it's blue skies. It is a pretty refreshing place to stay energized and to stay healthy. Like, this weekend, I probably rode, 80 miles on my bike, right, between Saturday and Sunday, because you get great weather and you can, and in our jobs, there really isn't this Monday through Friday. Like, I still work nights and weekends, but you just have to blend your life where you're kind of doing career and personal things any day or any night. But as long as you're still squeezing in those personal things, I think game on.
I love it. And have you thought about when you're going to hang up the chair, man? Or what do we call it? Hanging up the
I've got a while.
jersey?
I don't know that I'll finish my career just because of what I said. This job does require nights and weekends, and you're always having to be on your A game. But I would like to do this work for a while yet. And then maybe, like we talked about multiple careers and jobs, maybe I'll see that for my next chapter in another decade.
What would that even be? Like, have you even thought about, hey, if I can do something else, what would I do? Have you even thought that far?
I probably would still stay in higher ed doing something. Either, there's so many things you can do. You can do my job as an interim. When schools have an opening, you go and help them for 6 months, or all the different vendors who are great partners for people like us and a staff in an admission office that I would enjoy that, because you can really focus on helping people with strategy and solutions and be part of their victories. So I think those are definitely options I'd consider. And who knows, you say all this and you might still be in this seat, another decade.
Hey, consulting.
Don't dictate the terms, right? Let it happen.
Yeah, for sure. You just got to let kind of ride the wave. I mean, look where it's gotten you, 30 years later. I just love that 30 years and you still speak so highly of it. Like, it just doesn't seem like work. It clearly, right? You really love this. You wake up to this. What do you tell that person that is maybe a first gen and they're just feeling like this is not for them, or they just don't know how to get started? I think there's a lot of people that want to do this, they never seen it. And I think it's so hard for people to reach something they have never actually seen, or don't have the help to get to. What's the message?
Yeah, I think one thing we just have to be careful as a society. I think the media, you just see so many stories about how hard it is to be admitted into colleges that, they get 80,000 apps and their admit rate was 10%. And then if you're lucky enough to be admitted, you couldn't afford it. So I think there's just these messages that students see. I want to remind everyone, the vast majority of colleges and universities admit more than half of their applicants. So the media might focus on the 30 schools that have the really low admit rates, but generally most of us are looking for reasons to admit and enroll great people and great students. And then I think the other thing is, don't be scared off by sticker prices. Sticker prices are scary everywhere. I don't care if it's a community college or a four-year public or a four-year private like DU. Sticker prices are high for most families. But when you go through the process, you have to remember there's merit scholarships for academics, there's talent scholarships, and then there's financial aid. And those factors can really make it a viable option for many, many families where it truly is affordable. Sticker prices have gone up like crazy. You can see all the stories. But with the financial aid the colleges provide, the out-of-pocket price that families are paying is essentially the same as it was 20 years ago.
Oh, wow. You mentioned private, and some may obviously know the terminology of public. What is the difference between, at least for you, private and public?
Yeah, well, I think just for families, one of the reasons there's a difference in sticker price is privates are not supported at the state level, right? That all of our revenue has to come from tuition from the students. Although you're seeing more and more public universities, because of the state aid being reduced, a lot of them operate more like privates too, where they might only be getting 10 or 15% of their funding or less from their states. So,
Wow.
I think we've all become tuition dependent, even the publics. But, the main message for families is you can absolutely do this. There is a place for you. And there are so many different options to look at, even just all those different types of schools and sizes of schools for you to look at, both in your home city and state, but also surrounding states and even 10 states away, that you should keep your eyes wide open. Because there really are a lot of great viable options, both academically and financially.
I have another question that just came into mind as you're saying. Like, I'm one of those just intrigued by this space. Probably I didn't ask enough questions when I was younger, but you mentioned the admission rates, okay? So we approve this many. You're saying the rest of them would have to pay full price, or like, what was that? So if let's say you admit 100 more people were on that waiting list. They can still go to the school, is what you're saying, but what is now the protocol for that?
Well, okay, so I was just talking about being admitted, right? So what percentage of applicants are admitted when they apply to a certain school? And on average, most schools are admitting more than 50%. The financial aid stuff comes a little bit later. So when you're admitted, those schools are then reviewing you for academic scholarships. If you've applied for financial aid, like submitting the FAFSA, some privates like DU, we also require the profile. Those will come usually a few weeks later when we let you know if you're eligible for need-based financial aid, not just merit. And those are the things where I think the possibilities really open up for families. And that's why you have to be patient. It's not like going to the store and buying a TV, right? You know the price, you're going to pay for it and walk out with it. Where college, it's a 6 to 9 month process where you're applying and then you're not even enrolling till the following fall in most cases. And you don't know your price. You might apply in October and not even know out of pocket what it's going to cost you until December or January.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense now. And then for the admissions, is it just kind of based on seating, budget? Is that what kind of determines the approval rate of, hey, we can only approve this much to this much because our budgets, especially at a private level?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into the approval rates. One is just your capacity. How many seats and beds do you have? Also your market position. What's your market demand? That generally the schools that are admitting more, their admit rates are not a reflection of their quality or that they don't have good faculty. It's not the case at all. Most of those are great schools. But they're realizing, hey, students are applying to 5, 10, 15, 20 schools. They're only going to one. And most of these students have really competitive academic records. They're going to get admitted to a lot of schools. All of us have to admit a good number of students to make sure we enroll the number we need for our budgets.
Okay, so it makes sense, man. Your work is not
in
like...
some ways for families now, it's a buyer's market, right? That, especially now with fewer high school students, this is the first small class nationally. Certainly some other regions of our country have already experienced this through their own lower birth rates or through people migrating out of their states, just moving out. So some states and regions have already seen fewer high school seniors, but nationally, this is the first class that is a little bit smaller than the one before. And we're going to see that for another 15 years where each class is a little smaller than the one before. So colleges are competing for a smaller group of students. So what are they doing? They're admitting more. They're getting more competitive with their scholarships. So it's a good time to be going to college.
Good stuff to know, man. Like, I don't know that I knew the actual trajectory, but you are right. If I apply for the school and I get it, that doesn't mean I'm actually going there. Because even from the foundation that we run, we'll give a kid a scholarship, and then says, "Oh, I actually am not going to go to that school. I need you to send a check to XYZ
That's right.
school." And it's like, what? When did you make that decision, right? Like, you just told me 2 months ago, but I guess it is definitely something
You
that
see how
people gotta
hard
go
my
through.
job is? That's a student you personally know and you had been working with, and they change your mind and you didn't know they were going to do that. My team has to predict what 15,000 people are going to do, or 10,000 admit, whatever, how many number your admits are, and name the school. But,
Yeah.
we're expected. I always give this analogy. We get upset with the weather people, and they're predicting a snowstorm that's going to happen literally a day later. And they have all the science, all these great tools, probably AI as well. And think of how many times they've predicted we're going to get a foot of snow, and you barely got an inch. Or they're
Yeah.
predicting an inch, and you end up getting, a foot and a half. And yet, we in our profession are trying to predict the behavior of humans and things they're going to do like 6 and 7 months out, right? Like, think about it. We're
Wow.
making admission decisions in the winter, determining what they're going to do with that coming fall.
Yeah.
And yes, we have great science and tools too, but people expect the precision from enrollment management, and weather scientists can't even get it right. Many, many times. So, and you're a great example. That student changed their mind, and it kind of surprised you, right? We get surprised on a daily basis by
Yeah.
hundreds of students, both good and bad.
Yeah, no, that's tough. That is very, very tough because it's like your emotions, right, from that level is like it's a roller coaster. It's like I'm excited. Oh my God, we got all these students. I was talking to another leader. I guess they had like a whole bunch of signees this past Saturday, right? And she says it was really exciting. We had so many people, but we still gotta wait now and it's because of that. Those people started to really drop off. They're there, they're excited, and then someone gets in their ear, and someone said this, or another opportunity presented itself. Life starts lifing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is very, very. Hey man, but what a good person to be there because 30 years later, you still dealing with it, Todd. So that means you got this down packed. What are some of the things that you've kind of thought outside the box, right? That were maybe common sense that people don't really think of. You don't got to give all your secrets, but what are some other
Never have it
secrets?
down pat. Secondly, one of the reasons I've stayed energized in this job, I mean, first of all, over 30 years, I've also had multiple jobs, right? I was fortunate enough to keep getting promoted from a counselor to a director to our associate vice chancellor to our vice chancellor. So it wasn't like I've done the same job for 29 years, but there's a few things that keep you motivated. One, your job literally is different every year. There could be federal changes that you have to adapt to versus compliance, or the market changes, right? These high school students aren't the same as they were 5 or 10 years ago. That the way we market to students, we didn't have AI a couple of years ago to personalize messages to students. That there's things that evolve, keep me excited. I always want to be part of that next new thing. And that's been true at DU too. I think as a university, we've reinvented ourselves many, many times in the 3 decades I've been here. And I'm like, hey, I've given my blood, sweat, and tears, and we've been able to arrive here. But now with these tools and resources and things we're adding, like we added a mountain campus for our students a couple of years ago. We've added a 4D student experience where we're really focusing and trying to integrate their academic growth, their well-being, their character, their careers, and personal development all into one across the curriculum. Those are things that keep me motivated. And I was like, okay, I'm not leaving now, right? I want to
Yeah,
stick
yeah.
around. And especially if I thought recruiting was hard 10 years ago, with these new tools and these new things we can brag about, not that recruiting's ever easy, but it's like now I'm finally feeling like we've got the tools to get after it. So why would I give that up?
Yeah, no, it makes sense, man. And I know we're coming here up on time, man. So I kind of leave you with this last question. First of all, thank you so much, really, Todd, for just giving us so much insight. Because even myself, that speak to so many people in the space, always still learning. And I can imagine there's those, 17, 18-year-olds that are leaving, or even just those that are just starting, high school, wanting to go to college. There's a lot of questions that they may have, sometimes afraid to ask, don't know who to ask. So just asking all these questions, you're willing to answer them. We truly thank you for that. But I'll leave you with this one. What's your message to someone who doesn't see themselves as a school person, but knows that education is the foundation of everything else they want?
Yeah, I would say one, college truly is not for everyone, right? There
Hmm.
are other really good tracks that are great for your career too. And, we talked about some of that earlier, but some of those professional trades are really, can really lead to productive careers too, right? But I would say for the people that just don't see themselves in that, they've maybe been disenfranchised in high school because they feel like it's just this busy work and it's boring, and how does this apply to my life, or when will I ever use this again? I would say keep your eyes open and your perspectives open, that college is just a lot different. It's not about, hey, here are 5 lectures and take a quiz or a test, or that there's so many other things going on, and you live on a college campus. You might only be in class, let's say, 12, 18 hours a week. Well, that's not even one day. Remember, there's 24 hours in a day, and obviously we spread that across 5 days, but think of the hours outside of class where you are maybe doing an internship, or you have a job, or you and your friends, if you're here at DU, maybe you're going camping, or maybe you're going snowboarding together. You're going down to a Nuggets game downtown Denver, or you were celebrating our hockey championship Saturday night. That there's so many things that happen along that 4-year journey, and that's been the fun part of my career too. Seeing a first-year student come in, and then 4 years later at graduation, seeing how much they've matured, and just the sophistication academically, but also personally. That growth is so fun to watch. So I think the people that are only thinking about the curriculum or the school part are kind of missing the boat of the holistic education that we provide, and not to don't underestimate the sticker price on that. That the ROI on that it's priceless, right? Like the ad, you can't put a price tag on that.
I love it. Well, listen, Todd, I thank you so much for your time, man. I can't believe that we've been talking for as long as we have, but I appreciate the conversation. And for those that are still watching, higher ed is definitely an investment worth looking into. So many people just look at the price tag, as you kind of mentioned, and it scares people because you're thinking about the now and you're not thinking about what happens when you actually make that investment, and how you'll see that, 3x and 4x just as long as you just stay persistent, find those resources. Todd, really good resource. Where could people find more information? What is the website that people can find some more information? Are you on LinkedIn? Maybe someone wants to write you a personal message. If you can just kind of give us all that before we start to wrap up.
You can definitely personally find me on LinkedIn. You can find me, just go to the DU directory and look up Todd Rinehart, my email, and I'm always happy. What I'd encourage your listeners to do, and for you, come visit our campus. And on our website, you can sign up for a visit. If you're coming and you listen to the show, shoot me an email before. Maybe I'll take you to lunch, or at least for a couple of minutes, say hello. And it'd be fun to connect that you learned about DU through the show. And then we'll go celebrate it, and I'll host you for lunch.
All right, and hopefully we'll get another championship next year, right? Now it'll be 4 out of 6 years, right? Yeah, 4 out of 6 years.
Yeah.
And then we definitely going to be having a good celebration, man, because 4, that's crazy.
We're counting on our goaltenders, a first-year student. A lot of our players are young. We've got some great recruits coming in next fall to add to this roster for the ones we're going to be losing. So, yeah, the future is definitely bright for DU hockey.
Love it. My name is Ephraim. This has been Todd. And make sure you guys do follow, subscribe, and comment to enjoy more conversations like this. Thank you again, Todd, for your time. We'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, really enjoyed it. Thank you.